when you get to heavy weights, there's a number of things working against you. The first thing is, on those 75 kilo reps, you have such momentum coming up to them. You're probably touching 60, 65, and 70 kilos regularly in the months leading up to that. Then you're going for 65, 70, 75 kilos, and you're building this momentum consistently in training. Now, because of those things, actually, interestingly, that Owen just mentioned about volume and we building a lot of volume at the start of a training program, we have many, many touch points with those weights and weights of similar size or weights of similar mental intensity to you. And then we get to the end of the program and we start transitioning into these 77 kilo attempts, the 80 kilo attempts, the 82 kilo attempts. Not only are they now just coming at the end of the program, but we also touch that weight so much more infrequently than we do the lighter ones, because we're not going to be doing the sets of 4s, the sets of 3s, the sets of 2s. We're not going to be doing 6 sets, 5 sets, 4 sets with that, because those weights are significantly heavy where we're just not going to be able to handle it. Because of that, we end up having far less momentum with those heavier weights. They end up becoming placed on top of a pedestal to the point where you really don't get to do it that often. So when you are doing it, you perceive this importance, or you have this level of perceived importance in your brain around that, and you tend to mess it up. Second thing on this is we tend to mess up heavier weights because heavier weights are pulling us into poorer positions, and we might just have slight inadequacies, whether that's through postural musculature, whether that's through a lack of speed or ability to contract enough muscle tissues fast enough, to whereby heavier weights massively reduce how well our technique looks or how well we move a barbell with our actual technique. That's not because your technique is poor. That's because your body isn't physically prepared to maintain those positions throughout those pulls. If I am pulling on 200 kilos, my body is at a certain level. If I was to then go and pull on 300 kilos, I am not able to maintain those same positions. I'm certainly not able to maintain those same positions while moving the barbell adequately fast enough. And the same thing is happening here when you're going from 75 kilos for triples to 82 kilos for a single. You're trying to move the bar at the same speed, if not even faster. The barbell is significantly heavier to the point where maybe it's some sub-scap stuff is moving around and your shoulders are slightly further forward. Maybe it's your quads aren't contracting quite enough to the point where your knees are shooting back a little bit more. There's a host of things happening here, but I would highly recommend watching the Building Confidence Under the Bar video.
So a big part of confidence obviously comes from competence. So if you're very sure in your ability and you've demonstrated that for yourself, a lot of times then your ability to go and hit those weights is heightened. You know, clerking, sometimes people think is just this mental intensity thing where you're an absolute dog and you just absolutely send the barbell and you just jump under it. You don't care what happens. But obviously a huge part of that comes from actually making successful lifts at heavy weights is having the dog in you, to be fair. But it's also from becoming very precise and very good at the ability to lift these heavier weights. And so that comes from, like Dara's talking about, that training momentum and easing your way into it. And then as you get better and more competent at weightlifting, you'll get more confident because you'll trust your abilities. But also, a lot of weightlifting is reactive. And as weights get heavier, even relative to yourself at 82 kilos, your ability to synchronize and coordinate your body to do these lifts is something that gets much better and it takes a long time. I always say it took, I think it was at 7 years or something to snatch 151 kilos. And it was only after that time that I finally feel like I actually understood the snatch. Gabriel thinks it takes 10 years before anyone becomes truly competent with weightlifting. And he says that in the most deadpan way possible. So I took a break from weightlifting for about a year and a half, and I started again, well, snatching specifically, February of last year. And I was talking to Anton, and it was a very interesting conversation. He was like, you're obviously strong enough to lift heavy weights. And he was like, you're obviously not afraid of these heavier weights because they're weights I've done before. Why would you be afraid of any weight? But he said, you don't look confident in your ability. And it was very useful to hear that said out loud because just hadn't quite had enough practice at this stage or at that stage to know exactly what to do. And a lot of that has to be reactive. So again, a lot of this comes from being confident in your ability being sure of what you're doing at what certain stage of technique, like Darren was talking about there. Sometimes your knees aren't coming back at the right time. And a lot of Clarks are actually technical issues where the barbell wasn't the right place for you to apply enough force. You could have never have made it anyway, no matter how aggressive you got with that lift, because you weren't in the right position. So a lot of Clarks are technical. Some of them are combination, and some people get this big thing in their head about certain weights. But a lot of times it's actually your technique sucks.
A lot of times it's just your fault.
You suck.